Hi, welcome to Vanished Voices. We're your hosts. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Shannon. Before we get into today's case, a quick ask. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Audible, please take a moment to rate and review Vanished Voices. It's a fast, free, and easy way for you to support the show. It helps push these stories further and means the world to us. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss an episode. Thank you, as always, for helping us amplify these voices.
Thanks, Shannon.
Why, you're welcome.
The case I have for you today begins on an ordinary Monday morning in a small North Carolina town where not much happens and where routines rarely change. An 18-year-old girl walks into her local library. She sits at a public computer. She logs into Facebook. She does what she always does. She signs out. She walks out the front door. And she is never seen again. Hours later, her social media account appears again. Not at the library, but inside the home of a convicted sex offender living on a quiet rural road just outside town. She leaves the house in the early afternoon. No witnesses.
So how do they know she leaves the house?
We don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, great question, because there are no witnesses that see her leave or where she goes. There are no phone calls, no bank transactions, no sightings, no trace. How does a young woman vanish in broad daylight from a town where everybody knows everybody? Why did her digital footprint lead investigators to one specific house? And why, 16 years later, has no one ever been charged? What happened in the hours between logging out of the library computer and being in that house on a country road? This is the disappearance of Jalesa Chantell Reynolds. Scotland Neck, North Carolina is a town of roughly 2,000 people. Small. It sits in Halifax County, surrounded by farmland, pine woods, and slow-moving rural highways. It's a place where people recognize each other's cars, where children grow up knowing every shortcut path, where strangers stand out, and where disappearances are not supposed to happen. Jalesa Reynolds grew up here. Official records describe her as 5 foot 2 inches. She's a Black female with short black hair and brown eyes. Those who knew her describe her in a simple, gentle way. Quiet, shy, soft-spoken. She kept to herself. She didn't cause trouble. She didn't run with a crowd. She didn't party. She wasn't known to disappear, especially overnight or for long stretches. She lived a small, consistent life. Jalesa was working towards her GED. She didn't have a driver's license. She didn't own a car. She didn't have a cell phone. She didn't have a bank account. She didn't really move through the world independently in the way that many teenagers, especially those that are 18, do. Instead, she followed a routine. Home, her GED classes, the library, and usually right back home. The Scotland Neck Memorial Library became a regular stop in her daily life. Without a phone or a home computer, the library's public internet terminals were her connection to the outside world. She used them to check social media, to message friends, to exist in the digital spaces that most teenagers take for granted. Her family says she followed this pattern faithfully. Go to class, go to the library, go home. She rarely deviated from that schedule, which is why when she didn't come home on February 22nd, 2010, alarms immediately went off. Jalesa didn't just take off. That wasn't who she was. February 22nd, 2010 was a normal winter Monday, cool air, gray sky, nothing remarkable or unique on the surface. Jalesa arrived at the Scotland Neck Memorial Library that morning, as she often did. Library records show she logged onto a public computer around mid-morning. She accessed Facebook. She spent some time there, casually online. Nothing unusual.
When I remember Facebook in those days, you literally could, because it wasn't an app yet, and it was still
a browser. Is weird to think about, huh?
And so you would go on, usually at your laptop. Yeah, because I just remember not being able to check. Well, no, I guess I could. No, even from an iPhone, you still had to go through the browser. But it was where there was no ads or there were no pages. It was just you and your friends. So you could easily catch up from where you'd last left off and know exactly, like, okay, I've already liked this one. Everybody had the worst like ate breakfast today, like those type of things. So yeah, going on Facebook and catching up really quick and then logging off, that was like the norm.
Yeah. I'm not sure what time she got there, but they said she wasn't there too long.
Well, did they say how long she was normally there? Like her routine was a couple hours?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, was she going up there to study also, or was this just really for her to get on the computer?
Usually also to study.
Okay.
The library did have cameras that confirmed her leaving the building. And so that's how we know that's the last time that anyone can say with certainty where they physically saw Jalesa in public. She didn't go home after this. At first, her absence might have seemed like a delay. Maybe she went to see a friend. Maybe she got a ride somewhere because remember, she doesn't have a car. But as the hours passed, her family grew concerned. Jalesa didn't have a phone. And if she was running late, she was really good about finding a way to let someone know. Jalesa wasn't known to stay out overnight, and she was really good about communicating, especially if she was not coming straight home, not following that normal routine, which even then, out of the ordinary. By the next day, her family absolutely knew something was wrong. They reported her missing. The Halifax County Crime Stoppers missing persons listing notes that the family's report date was on the 23rd, and multiple agencies responded to locate her fairly quickly. According to the same listing, the Scotland Neck Police Department, the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigations, which is the SBI, the Halifax County Sheriff's Office, and, quote, countless other law enforcement agencies responded in an effort to help her. This doesn't feel like the she's probably out partying or give it 48 hours type of response that we see in a lot. In missing persons cases, we know time is everything, but sometimes technology can help preserve moments that human memory cannot. Within hours of the missing person report being filed, all of those agencies became involved. In a town where resources are often limited, the response was swift and unusually broad. Investigators recognized early that Jalesa's predictable routine meant her disappearance was suspicious. Their first step was to retrace her last known movements. They were able to confirm with library staff that Jalesa had been present the morning before. It sounds like they knew her. They saw her almost every day.
Easily.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think even then you had to like check out a computer. I'm assuming it's going to be like the ones here.
Yeah, especially if you want online access.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember when my kids would wait at the library after school before I could pick them up from getting off work, and they would play on the computers there, but they always had to check something out to then get on and then turn it back in when we left.
I remember that one at the library by us. Yeah. Computer usage logs were pulled and surveillance footage was reviewed. Officers confirmed the exact terminal she used, so likely they knew which computer she had gotten that card for or key for or whatever. They could tell the time she logged in and the moment she logged out, and then because of surveillance, they could tell when she walked out of the library. That gave investigators this rare, precise timestamp of her last confirmed public sighting. From there, detectives moved quickly into digital forensics, which really was still an emerging investigative tool in 2010, and especially in some of these rural cities and towns that maybe didn't have all of the same tools that more urban areas had. They subpoenaed records from Facebook and internet service providers. These records led them to an IP address that showed Jalesa's account had been accessed again later that same afternoon at 1:40 p.m. Not from the library this time.
And that she had left the library around 11?
Yeah, a little bit after.
Interesting. So 2.5 hours later.
Yeah.
Which if you're logging on to your Facebook account, you feel like you're in a comfortable spot.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They found the IP address was from a private residence on Cemetery Road, which is about 1.5 miles outside of town. And the library is basically like downtown town.
Yeah.
So the 1.5 miles is also how long it is to get from the library to this house.
Okay.
It's not like a quick, easy walk.
Yeah.
It would have taken her at least 30 to 35 minutes, probably.
A mile
and
yeah.
a half.
Yeah. Easily 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming she walked.
Assuming she walked.
And wasn't picked up.
Right. Discovering that she had gone to this house on Cemetery Road was a pivotal break for investigators. Now, like we were just talking about, the residence is on this quiet back road. There are sparse houses. It's surrounded by trees, fields. There are no sidewalks, obviously no heavy foot traffic. It's a place where neighbors really notice unfamiliar faces. The residence belonged to a man named Dwayne Davis. Investigators followed up on this lead quickly. Who was Dwayne Davis? Why was Jalesa's account being used from his home? How did she get there? Someone bring her? Was she alone? Was she coerced?
Do her family know? Did they know him, or
It doesn't.
does she seem to have a prior friendship with him?
It doesn't appear that her family knew him
Okay.
or knew anything about her being there.
Yeah.
From his own account, it wasn't the first time she had come over.
Okay.
I could not find how they met to begin with because Jalesa is 18.
Mm-hmm.
This man is 35. We've got quite an age gap.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
he
not an
says-
illegal age gap.
True. He says, it's so tough. He seems like he's trying to dot his I's and cross his T's by saying that she had been there in a very broad way. He said she liked his horses and would come over to see them, and he didn't mind at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't appear like there's an exact number of times that they can say she's been there.
Mm.
And this case is still open and active. And so police haven't released details on how they met or
Right.
what kind of relationship that was. And like you asked earlier, we don't know if she walked there or if he picked her up.
Right. Or someone picked her up and they
Or someone
all went over there.
Right. It doesn't appear that there's any reporting that anyone else was over there, just that she wanted to come over, see his horses. Then he says use his computer.
So he was, since she didn't have a phone, she just would randomly stop by. There was no routine established that, she came over every Tuesday to see my horses and I was always here.
Not that's available,
Published. Okay.
but it would make sense. Or possibly there's Facebook communications between them
that's true.
that haven't been released.
I don't remember if Messenger existed back then or not. Can't remember.
I don't remember that either.
'Cause I remember that, or maybe it did exist, but I just remember when it became its own app. Like they pulled it out of
Mhm.
Facebook.
Oh, yeah. So maybe it was.
I honestly don't remember if messaging, if the DMing existed back then. It was too long ago.
Also, he could have had a very private lockdown account that
That didn't
she
exist back
could-
then.
Oh,
Everything was wide open. The privacy stuff didn't come for years later.
huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Now, you had to be friends with the person, but the way you can lock it down now didn't exist in 2010. That was a much later feature.
Okay.
Because I remember when that feature even showed up, it was like, if you want to go back and it was only going to start from a certain date. So you actually had to go back to your old postings to make them private, because otherwise they were going to still show as public.
Do you remember when that happened?
No.
I
would say
remember
around
either.
2014, 2015, though.
Okay, I was thinking 2015 for
Yeah.
some reason, but
Yeah.
I don't have
Somewhere
a good,
around there. Because I literally
Yeah.
spent the time to go back and make everything
Yeah,
private.
and maybe she would comment on a picture of
True.
his. Can I come over?
Yeah, because that's really what it was. You were just it
Yeah.
wasn't like anything.
And then the conversation back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Yeah.
would see people talk to each other that way,
Yeah.
just on your photo.
Yeah. Those are funny to look back on now.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Officers made contact with Dwayne Davis pretty quickly. They questioned him. They secured the location. They seized the computer equipment for forensic analysis by the FBI. Davis told investigators that Jalesa had come to his house voluntarily that afternoon. He said she visited to see his horses and used his computer to check Facebook. He claims that she left on her own sometime between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. Now, no one else reported seeing her arrive, but again, it is its own area.
Was his house on land? Did he sit on 5 acres or something?
He sat on a good deal of land.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like he had any neighbors right there.
Yeah.
But you still have to walk by places to get there.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
He could be the only one out there on that side of town, and it's 10 acres of all his property.
And it is outside of the exact town.
The town is not big, which makes it even more rural sounding, but I just was curious how much land he actually owned that his house was sitting on.
I'm not sure.
Because is it enough time? I mean, is there places on his property that she could be hidden?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There have been no confirmed sightings of Jalesa, no digital activity, no physical trace. And then again, without the phone, without the bank accounts, there isn't a lot of other things to check to see if she's still using any of her normal things.
Well, and she didn't have a job, right? So there was no paycheck to go for it to be put anywhere.
Nope, just focusing on school at the moment. Law enforcement focused their early search efforts in and around the area, which makes sense. They can see at the very least that her account was logged into from that location.
Right.
Again, it doesn't necessarily prove that she's the one that did it, but at the same time,
I mean, you assume it. He's already admitting she was there. Yeah,
exactly.
So, that lines up. He's fully admitting she was there and used Facebook.
Right. Deputies, volunteers, friends, family, search teams, they all moved through these wooded areas surrounding Cemetery Road. They organized grid searches. They brought in canine units. Dive teams checked nearby ponds, waterways. Officers canvassed roads. They spoke to neighbors. They asked residents if they had seen Jalesa walking or getting into a vehicle. Investigators later confirmed they conducted more than 60 interviews in this very early phase of the case, which shows how aggressively they were pursuing these leads. Search operations expanded beyond the land. The Roanoke River and surrounding bodies of water were examined. Ditches along rural roads were checked. Abandoned wells were inspected. They went through brush piles. There were abandoned structures that they went in, looked through. The terrain around Scotland Neck is dense and rural, the kind of landscape where evidence can be concealed easily and accidentally overlooked.
So the canines didn't find anything? Okay.
Not.
Were they able to search his land?
Yes.
Or just the surrounding area?
They were able to search his land. Okay. They were able to get a warrant because of a prior conviction.
Okay.
And that IP address.
Okay.
And his confession that she had been there.
Okay.
In a cruel twist of fate, searchers did locate human remains in a wooded area during these early search efforts. Forensic testing later confirmed they belonged to a different missing woman from an unrelated case.
Around his property?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So I dug into that. There's very, very little. They've not even put out publicly whose remains they found.
Oh, so she's a Jane Doe? Well, they clearly know who she is because they said a different missing woman from an unrelated case.
Yeah, they know. I don't know why they wouldn't put out who it was.
Interesting.
I guess they also found remains similar in the area in March of 2013, but they said those belonged to a man.
Oh, okay.
And again, not connected, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
The rumors about the human remains found in the earlier search. Okay, so this is unconfirmed from somebody who lives in the area that had been posting about Jalesa's case. this person said there was a man that lived close to where Davis lived that was also in prison in 1994 for sexual assault. He is the one who killed this woman and buried her near the farm that Davis owned. And it was a fluke that they found her body while looking for Jalesa.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that they've gone down that path, especially if and it might just be local gossip saying that it was this person that he was in prison with, but maybe he didn't make very many friends when he was in prison. I don't know. Investigators conducted, like we said, dozens and dozens of interviews. They talked to friends, family, neighbors of Jalesa, also neighbors of Davis, people who might have seen Jalesa walking, maybe getting into a car. Nothing definitive surfaced. Behind the scenes, detectives were working the digital angle. They analyzed computer hard drives, internet history, login timestamps, everything that could reveal whether Jalesa herself was using the computer or whether someone else might have accessed her accounts after she disappeared. Those results have never been publicly released either. Investigators quickly realized that they were dealing with a criminal case. They were pretty certain. They suspected foul play really early on. Evidence was thin, though. Physical proof was non-existent. We didn't have a crime scene, no witnesses. They not found her. The case was growing pretty complicated. Now, Dwayne Davis was not an unknown figure to law enforcement. He was a registered sex offender. He had previously served 7 years of prison time for rape, and that charge had happened when he was 17 or 18. So it happened when he was, in 93.
Quite a few years before.
Quite a few years.
So he'd been out for over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Did the community know?
I'm not sure if they were really aware of his past.
Okay.
I don't know if Jalesa knew anything about that.
I'm going to assume she didn't.
Yeah. So I tried to find if there were any arrests, convictions, anything like that between when he had gotten out of prison and 2010. I didn't find any in that time frame, but I did find some since then that we can get into.
Oh.
Now, Davis kept horses on his property. He lived alone.
Horses are not cheap.
Right? And maybe that's why I was thinking he was older, just because that seems like a big financial commitment.
Yeah. And okay, it's been probably 10 years since he got out of prison, but I'm curious as to what he did for a living, because knowing that you have a felony conviction on your record, that makes finding a job difficult.
Okay, I will say 3 years later, he's arrested for possessing enough heroin to supply thousands of users.
Okay, so he's potentially a drug dealer.
And whether he was doing any of that before this, I don't know. But that was only 3 years later.
3 years later from
2010.
Okay.
From when Jalesa went missing.
Oh, okay.
But could potentially be a way.
Yeah, that would make more sense. Because then, you own property, you have horses, which are not cheap. Interesting.
Seems like it's not an interesting person, but I want to know more about what was happening between 2001 and 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah. Davis acknowledged that he knew Jalesa when investigators asked. He admitted that she came to his home. He admitted she used his computer. He insisted she left unharmed. And one thing I was thinking was that because police were on this so quickly and they found the IP address that she had used to log in on from his property, there was never a chance to see if they had put out a missing person report, if he would come forward to say that. Pretty much right away, they went to him.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have been interested to see if he's only telling them all this because they're at his house saying, hey, we know she was here.
Yeah. When you have to register as a sex offender, you are the first person the police are going to visit, have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that have any other people accused him of rape besides the one he was actually convicted of?
That I'm not sure on.
Because it is also interesting that you said it was when he was 17, which means he's still a minor. So how is that public?
It could have been 18.
Okay.
Depends on the exact timing. It was either right when he turned 18.
Okay.
So there could be other things from prior that are sealed that we don't know. It was hard to even find the 2013 thing with him. Yeah. From the beginning, investigators obviously viewed him as a person of interest. Search warrants were executed at his home. They did seize his computers, his vehicles were examined, and his property was searched multiple times over the following months and years. Davis denied any involvement in her disappearance. He maintained that he had nothing to do with whatever happened after Jalesa walked away from his home. In interviews, he complained of being harassed by police. He stated that because of his past, everyone assumed he was guilty. In those interviews, he said he felt bad for Jalesa's family, but insisted he was not responsible. Despite being publicly identified as a suspect later in the investigation, he has never been arrested or charged with anything. And to this day, he remains the only known person confirmed to have been with Jalesa in those final hours before she vanished. Roughly a month after Jalesa disappeared, law enforcement returned to his property with renewed intensity. A coordinated search involving multiple emergency vehicles descended on the area. There was another search warrant executed at the residence that was tied to Jalesa's final digital trace. Nothing publicly was announced that they found or didn't find, but investigators have continued treating the location as central to the case. And that could be all the things we talked about. It could also be they have nowhere else to focus on as intensively.
Mm-hmm.
As the media coverage grew, which I will say another commenter said that they only lived about 30 minutes away from where this happened, and they lived there at the time and still do, and they had never heard of this case.
Okay, that's wild because, again, small town, rumor mill, girl goes missing.
Yep.
Whole town would normally be looking.
Yeah. And, it's not exactly in town.
No, but still.
But you would think
that's where he's going to go to grocery shop,
area.
To get gas, to shop.
Right. And they said they'd never heard of it a year ago.
Was the school that Jalesa would have attended before deciding to get a GED in that town?
Yeah.
So I can imagine that she didn't maintain some friendships, or at least
right. It just sounds.
I mean, small. Like
the media coverage was so small.
Is the town predominantly black or is it predominantly white? Because again, for law enforcement to have multiple jurisdictions all participating in her search, I don't see how the town didn't know about it. I could see maybe local news. Well, I don't see it, but I could see why people saying they didn't hear it. But just the town itself is shocking that they didn't know about it.
Agreed.
Because I'm like, you go to the one restaurant in town and everyone's gossiping.
And if only 2,000 people live there, like you said, you're going to these nearby towns to go out to eat or to go to Walmart or whatever.
The one store, the one gas station, the one bank.
As of 2020, 67.6% of the town's residents identified as Black or African American.
Okay, so it's predominantly Black.
Yep.
Which again, I would think the rumor mill would be wildfire.
Yeah, agreed. Also, side note, where I am seeing this comment is someone commenting on a post about her, and the title of it doesn't say it's in this town. It's just in like an unsolved mysteries subreddit. And so if you're looking for those things or you're reading the posts, you're paying attention to true crime.
Yeah.
The county where Scotland Neck is located does have higher crime rates than both the North Carolina average and the national average. So Halifax County had roughly 6,600 total crimes per 100,000 residents.
Is it close to a freeway or like a major freeway?
Not really.
Okay, so that's interesting because if I'm thinking about the drug angle, you would want a road to be able to bring import, export out.
Yeah. He does take like a quick trip to New Jersey to grab some clothes with a friend and come back. So there's got to be some
clothes, as I'm using quotation marks.
Uh-huh.
That's drugs.
And it was.
Yeah.
But there are those major roadways, but it's not like it's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. North Carolina's crime rates are 5,300 per 100,000, and the national average is 3,900. So they're 6,600.
Okay, that is higher.
Quite a bit higher. Crime aggregation sites rank Halifax County near the bottom in terms of safety. The county is said to be safer than about 3 to 6% of other U.S. counties. So less safe than 97 to 94% of counties. But 56% of arrests in Halifax County over the past decade were for low-level, nonviolent offenses. Because I wanted to see how experienced their police officers were in dealing with a missing person or a possible homicide or kidnapping, those types of things. But they did bring in the state investigators right away. They brought in Crime Stoppers right away. They brought in other agencies. So I'm guessing egos were not at stake. It was just, let's find Jalesa. As the media coverage did grow around the case, authorities made the unusual decision to request a gag order, which might also be why a lot didn't hear about it. Because if you have nothing to report, you're not putting it out in the news, right? Officers and investigators were restricted from publicly discussing details of evidence or investigative strategy. It was a move intended to protect the integrity of the case, to prevent false confessions, to keep key facts from being publicly contaminated. But it also meant that Jalesa's family and the public received very few details about what investigators were finding behind the scenes. Which isn't to say that the case didn't remain active. It did. It's just sometimes those tips or help that investigators need that comes from the public is because the public knows about the case. And in this first year or 2 years, they really weren't able to speak on any of it. In September 2010, the governor's office announced a reward for information leading to an arrest and a conviction. The reward was meant to serve two purposes: to keep the public attention alive and to signal that investigators believed Jalesa's disappearance was criminal in nature. At the 1-year anniversary of her disappearance, law enforcement held a press conference. They confirmed the case remained open and active. They stated foul play was suspected. And again, they urged the public to come forward with any information, no matter how small.
A gag order seems so odd in this particular case because it doesn't seem like they were spilling the beans anyway on investigative information.
I can't really find more reasoning for it.
Law enforcement that's been involved in criminal activity?
Funny you should say that.
Oh.
Okay. But also rumors.
Yeah.
Within those comments, there was quite a few who commented something to the effect of this one, for instance. They said, quote, "The craziest part is he, meaning Davis, may not have done it. I live in Scotland Neck and it's basically a ghost town. Everyone keeps to themselves and the police are extremely corrupt."
Okay.
He says there was a man who just got away with murder because the police department mishandled the evidence. Also, they forgot to read him his rights. Says, "I work in the grocery store and I see a potential killer of Jalesa's every day." And I don't know what that part means. Do they mean Davis?
No, I don't think they do. They would just say it because he's the name that everyone is aware of.
And I'm like,
he's
in prison right now.
Yeah.
But
that's just,
yeah.
For there not being a lot of information, what are you gag ordering on? And now that gives a different viewpoint to why so many jurisdictions got involved real quick and took it seriously. But now it's beginning to feel like because they need to cover it up. Okay, now that's me going on.
It feels
very conspiracy theory sounding, so, you know.
It feels like there's something else there.
But the gag order, I was like not there until then.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm like, that just seems odd.
Yeah.
Like I get a gag order, especially in a large city where there's media hounding you and people are talking to the press, and you want to make sure that because people will false confess. So I understand the reasoning why, but I'm not seeing that in this instance. So why do all of a sudden you don't want, like, what are you worried about them talking for? Like, that's just weird.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Now, devil's advocate.
Yes, please.
Small town cops also know everybody in the town. So, yes, you're going to casually have some discussions at the water fountain that you probably shouldn't be, again, to uphold the integrity of the case.
Which is important.
But it just, I don't know. Especially, yes, because now the family can't get information. And that's who really should be getting the information.
Yes, 100%.
Although I can think of not a personal case to me, but of somebody that I currently know dealing with an open case. And I do feel like they were giving the victim's mother more information, but obviously the caveat with you can't tell anybody. And she was actually not telling people because we would ask questions. She'd be like, well, I can't talk about that yet.
Oh.
So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I know it happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, and if you want, because in this instance, the victim is her son. So if you want your child's case to move forward, you're going to not just tell your friends, hey, this is what's going on.
Absolutely.
To protect the integrity of the investigation for your child. At the same time, the cops are sharing information with you. So I could, yeah.
And hopefully,
but in this case, we don't see that. We know the family's not getting information. So I'm going to go the other way.
Yeah. I do like the argument for both sides of it because you can see both sides of it and they both make sense.
Yes.
And there's nothing in official reportings that says anything about the integrity of the police department in this case. To me, prior to reading that, it seems like they were on top of it and they did more in a short period of time.
Which I was like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go. Yeah, compared to a lot of other cases.
Right.
Absolutely.
They took it seriously, which again tells me they probably knew who she was.
Yeah.
And this is like, hey, this is a kid in our...
Or they at least knew her parents or, Now, this is weird, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. A little bit less than a year, let's say around 5 months after Jalesa vanished, investigators uncovered a series of unusual 911 calls that they believed might be connected to her case. These calls began in June of 2010. Emergency dispatchers received these reoccurring strange 911 calls. It was always a female voice, they thought, whispered, muffled, sometimes claiming to be in danger, sometimes just hanging up abruptly.
Did they trace them? Did they all go to the same location?
Yeah, it's weird. They did. So over the course of a year, more than a dozen of these calls were placed, and they were all in the area around the Cemetery Road property. So Davis's property. And the same location where Jalesa's social media activity had been traced. Investigators really thought they were intentional calls. They were not random. They believed they were staged. They believed maybe designed to draw police attention.
Well, yeah. So
confusion.
Say it's somebody that still feels it's him. Let me make these calls from over here to draw police over, and maybe they'll investigate more.
Yeah, thank you. That is a great idea. Because it doesn't make sense that he would be wanting to draw police attention.
No, because he's already saying he's being harassed about it.
Right. Law enforcement reviewed the calls and determined that the voice on the line appeared to be from someone attempting to disguise their voice as a female caller. So to me, that makes it sound like a male, but also it could just be somebody trying to disguise their voice.
Did she have siblings?
That I couldn't find.
Cousins?
I'm sure.
Yeah. Like I'm assuming there's someone in her family that is motivated to find her.
Yes. It could also be somebody who...
Heck, even, well, they keep saying she didn't have friends, but I'm assuming she had friends.
Yeah, absolutely. It could also be somebody who is upset with Davis for something.
Yeah.
Who knows? And is like, oh, let's get police to, quote, harass him more. Here's how I can do it. Especially after knowing that they've done so many searches on his land and property.
Mm-hmm.
Each time the caller reported a situation that would prompt a 911 response, officers would arrive, and every single time, they found nothing wrong. There were search warrants filed around that time that noted the calls were steady over months and originated, quote, in the area where Dwayne Davis lives. These warrants were issued after Davis had already become a suspect in Jalesa's case, and as part of the 911 call pattern, investigators executed a search warrant at Davis's property in August of 2011, so about a year and a half after Jalesa went missing, and they seized multiple cell phones and other items for forensic analysis.
And he lived there alone, correct?
He did.
So again, why do you have multiple cell phones? Unless you're running a business.
Think of very few reasons why.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Despite this really unusual digital trail and then their efforts to trace it, no definitive public conclusion has ever emerged tying these calls to Jalesa's case. To me, they absolutely seem connected to Davis, but in what way, shape, or form, I can think of a few. The strange pattern, though, did deepen investigators' interest in Davis and kept the focus on Cemetery Road. So if it was somebody who was trying to get that to happen, that worked. As weeks turned into months, the community of Scotland Neck rallied around Jalesa's family. Press conferences were held, flyers distributed. The local media covered any updates, although that was a little bit few and far between. Her photo was shared across missing persons networks. Her cousin, who spoke on behalf of the family, described Jalesa as a young woman who never, ever had given them a reason to worry. He said they just wanted her home and urged anyone with information to come forward. Her mother pleaded publicly for whoever had her to bring her back safely, but days passed, then weeks, then months. The reward offered for information grew. Searches would resume periodically. New warrants were served. Investigators revisited old tips, redid their interviews. No breakthrough came. And as often happens in long-term missing cases, the media coverage faded. And again, I just don't think it was significant to begin with. The case moved from active search to open investigation, still ongoing, but with even fewer public updates. And for Jalesa's family, time did not heal. It stretched the pain, and not knowing is its own kind of torture. In the years that followed, law enforcement returned again and again to areas around Cemetery Road. They drained ponds. New technology was brought in. Specialists assisted in soil excavation. Ground-penetrating equipment was used in targeted locations. Detectives seized additional electronic devices from Davis in later years. Phones, hard drives, anything that could hold forgotten data. At one point, investigators publicly stated they believed they were moving in a positive direction, that they had new information, and that they hoped to present evidence to a district attorney. But no arrest came, no announcement, no resolution. And slowly, the case settled into that quiet space occupied by so many missing persons investigations. Active, unsolved, unresolved, and Jalesa Reynolds remains missing. Now, I did mention his arrest. So, in September of 2013, several years after his release from prison, 12, I believe, Dwayne G. Davis was involved in a violent incident that had him in law enforcement's crosshairs. 2 women were at a residence in Henderson, North Carolina, one of whom is identified as, we're just going to call her Whiteside, who had traveled to the location from out of state. Now, this was apparently at his grandma's house.
Say how far away from his house?
Same state, but I want to say 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay, so not far.
Not far. 4 friends had traveled to his grandma's house, and he went there. He went with one of them to get clothes, which was a duffel bag of drugs. According to published accounts, Davis brought a duffel bag containing drugs into the home. Tensions escalated. That woman, Whiteside, said when she walked in the kitchen and saw that, I want nothing to do with this. I have kids. I don't even want to be in the same area.
Right.
And went to leave. She says he threatened her and then said, you're not going anywhere, and violently punched her and assaulted her. Somehow she thankfully was able to get out of the home. Her and the other woman called 911. Police responded. Officers observed evidence of violent conduct. She had a horrendous black eye, like swollen shut eye.
Wow.
They searched the property and found a significant quantity of heroin, approximately 50 grams, drug paraphernalia, and 2 firearms. Again, convicted felon, not allowed to have firearms. The drugs in particular were enough that they would have yielded thousands of individual street doses. Obviously, from everything they found, it was known that Davis was preparing to process and package the heroin for distribution. Davis was charged with multiple offenses, including assault on the women, heroin trafficking, possession of a firearm by a felon, possession of a firearm with an altered serial number.
Oh.
Now, this case moved crazy slowly, and there were a lot of appeals. They went through it. He was able to file an appeal and get out on bond. I'm not exactly sure of that whole process, but while he was out on bond, he had a new attorney who was able to push this so that this new hearing wouldn't start until 2019 or something ridiculous. He didn't show up for court the first day, never showed up for court. Turns out he had gone to Morocco because they wouldn't extradite him, hung out there for a while. He was apprehended when he attempted to re-enter the United States on a cruise ship heading to Miami. So really bizarre. And this is all, this isn't reporting. This is in the appeal, in the records of the case.
I posted bail, or how much was bail? Because
it doesn't
seems like that's a pretty big drug offense. I'm surprised.
Me too.
Because to me, then you're using illicit funds to post your bail.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I am not entirely sure, but ultimately he was sentenced to 20 to 28 years in prison, also a mandatory fine. So I do believe that he is still in prison.
For the drug chart, for the heroin.
The heroin, the firearms, and the assault. Yeah. There were other unconfirmed things that they say he's been charged with, but I haven't been able to find the case records on them, so we'll just leave it with the one. But I do believe he's had a lot of experience with law enforcement.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Jalesa's disappearance is not a story that involves this risky lifestyle. It is not the case of a runaway pattern. It is not a tale of someone lost in the margins. It is the story of a quiet teenager following a normal routine who vanished in broad daylight from a small town where she should have been safe. It's a case built on a short digital trail and long unanswered questions. Still open. Somewhere, someone knows what happened that afternoon. Someone knows how Jalesa got to that house. Someone knows whether she left it alive. And someone then knows where she went next. Until that person speaks, Jalesa's voice remains among the vanished. When Jalesa disappeared, she was 18 years old. Today, she would be 34. She is a Black female standing 5'2" and weighing approximately 220 pounds at the time she went missing. She has black hair and brown eyes. Her family and friends knew her by the nicknames Jay and Lisa. Distinguishing features include patches of darker pigmentation on her arms. On the day she vanished, Jalesa was last known to be wearing a pink shirt, a blue denim jacket with a flower design on the back, tan khaki pants, black sneakers with Velcro straps, and a black headscarf with bobby pins in her hair. If you have any information about the disappearance of Jalesa Chantell Reynolds, no matter how small, no matter how uncertain, law enforcement wants to hear from you. If you lived in Scotland Neck in 2010, if you traveled Cemetery Road that day, if you knew Dwayne Davis, if you saw a young woman walking alone, if someone ever told you something that just didn't sit right, speak up. Tips can be given anonymously, and there is still a standing reward for information leading to an arrest in this case. You can contact the Scotland Neck Police Department, and I will post the phone numbers for all of these in the show notes. You can contact the Halifax County Sheriff's Office. You can contact Halifax County Crime Stoppers or visit their website. Look for Submit a Tip on their missing persons section. If you want to reference her official missing person listing when you call to report, her case is registered with NamUs and it is MP 10109. Now's the time to speak. Jalesa's family has waited almost 16 years for answers. They deserve the truth, they deserve justice, and Jalesa deserves to be found.
We're grateful you spent time with us today on Vanished Voices. These stories matter, and your support helps ensure that they are not forgotten. To see our full list of episode sources and extended materials, visit the blog linked on our site, vanishedvoicespodcast.com. Follow us across socials, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Vanished Voices Pod. Your messages and feedback help shape the conversations we continue to have. If you'd like to support the show, please take a moment to review, subscribe, and share. We're streaming wherever you get your podcasts. And as always, refuse to let these voices vanish.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.